month, I've applied to about 15 different jobs. Not one of them hired me. Well, one of them I got accepted for an interview, but after they discovered that I have autism or for some other reason, they didn't hire me. Actually, it was not because they discovered I had autism. I was being kind of pessimistic. The interviewer overheard my conversation with the other interviewees, and she overheard me, the interviewer overheard me telling them that I'm probably not going to get a job because of my autism, that I've applied to 15 different jobs and nobody hired me. And on the basis of my negativity, I was not hired. Even though I was very qualified for the position, I was actually just as qualified as all the others, actually even more qualified because I've done that job before, that type of job. But because of my negativity, I didn't get hired. The reason I was so negative is because 14 other jobs didn't hire me. So I'm like, the 15th is probably going to be the same thing. But at least I got called for the interview. But I was being very professional, courteous during the interview when it was occurring. And the interviewer even asked me, how would you present a pitch, if you want to get my message across? And I did it so perfectly. And then I asked, how did I do? And she said, oh, you did really well. And then she told me, oh, we'll give you a call if you get the job. And the other person, because I know I've actually been hired to such a position before at a different job, they would give you a piece of paper and to recite, to do a canvassing job, and they'll give you their number. They just told me and I immediately knew that I didn't get the job. So I went out, saying, okay, I didn't get the job. Great. I knew that 6 p.m. thing was just basically them telling me, await our call. But really, I didn't get the job. I knew that right away. So anyway, then I saw another guy walking out with a piece of paper. And I'm like, oh, congratulations, you got the job. They're like, yeah. I'm like, I didn't get the job because of my negativity. He said, yeah, you were kind of negative. And during the interview, I was very nervous. I was actually sweating a lot. And then she asked me, how many, have you applied to jobs? I desperately need a job because I'm going to school. I have a disability. I have autism. So maybe that was not the reason I didn't get the job. It was because of my negativity. The interviewer didn't tell me. It's obvious it was because of my attitude, my pessimistic attitude. And tomorrow, if I don't get the job if I don't get the job tomorrow, there's 2 possibilities of why I will not get the job if I don't. Either my autism diagnosis or my negativity. I hope it's neither. I hope I get the job tomorrow to prove myself, that good things also happen to me. Because lately I've had a lot of bad luck. No job. I've applied to like 15 different restaurant culinary positions. Nobody hired me, even though I was very qualified for everything. Especially since I worked for 2 years in a special needs school as a kitchen assistant. I worked for 2.5 years, so I'm very qualified for those jobs. But because of my autism diagnosis and because of in another case, because of my pessimism in relation to other discriminations, I didn't get the job. So 14 positions was because of my autism diagnosis, and the 15th position was because of my assumption of me not getting a job. So basically, kind of self-fulfilled prophecy for the 15th. But the first 14 were basically because of autism, and the last one was because of my attitude. Well, thank you for watching. Bye. And tomorrow, I'm probably not going to get the job. I will be very positive because, look, I got called for an interview. The other one was a walk-in interview. It was just random walk-in interviews that they put out on Indeed. But this one, it was a call. So there's hope that I will tell them about my autism diagnosis. I will. And I'm going to see where it's going to go from there. I'm thinking about whether I should record it or not. They'll probably tell me, oh, we'll call you if you get the job. That means I didn't get it. And if I get it, they'll probably say something like, oh, start first thing tomorrow morning, or start first thing that day. But if I didn't get it, they'll tell me, we'll call you if you get the job. Like, quote, call you. They're not, it's like the other job. If I got it, they'll tell me right away. Look, I know what I've been to a job interview before. I know what it's like. I mean, since it's a fast food restaurant, maybe they'll call you. They also let me know there's a lot of other people applying. So maybe I should not bring my autism diagnosis up. But then if I don't bring it up, they might not accommodate my needs. So I'm kind of on the fence of disclosing that. On one hand, I want to disclose it because then They'll understand me better. On the other hand, if I disclose it, I might not get the job. And yes, there's a lot of discrimination against people with autism because autism is more subtle. It's not an open disorder where it's visible. It's more of a hidden disorder that's more neurological than physical. And that's why it's easier to discriminate against people with autism. People mistake autistic traits as criminal behavior very often, actually. In the criminal justice system, a lot of people are actually there's somebody I know who's serving a life sentence just for having autism. And he never committed a serious crime. I'll tell you what happened. Switching from job interview to this, but it's related to autism. Back in 1993, a man was accused of killing somebody. That man then blamed his friend who has autism, Paul Madrowski, on committing the murder. And the fact is, Paul never had anything to do with the crime. But because Paul had autism, and he has been discriminated before by the police, he became very police savvy. He became very intelligent. And so when they arrested him and charged him with the murder, when they arrested him, he was very, very defiant during the interview. He even said so on his prison blog. He was extremely defiant. He would not talk, and he even said, "I will not say a word unless you give me a lawyer." And they didn't. So you know what? He didn't say anything. And as a result, the police officers they retaliated against him, discriminated. What they did was, because they didn't know he had autism, but they didn't like his attitude. So what they did was, they fabricated a confession. He did not confess. Paul never confessed to any crime. They fabricated a confession, claiming that he refused to confess on paper or audio and just told them. So they're saying, he confessed to us, and we're, just putting it out there. Truth is, he even said that they did not give him a piece of paper to sign. And they kept him in a hidden room where there's no cameras or anything. And I believe him because back then in the 90s, the Cook County police departments were very corrupt. Town of Mokina, Moline, Palatine, they were very corrupt. And they still are to this day, but not as bad as they were in the early 90s. But anyway, Paul Madrowski, the police officers claim that he confessed to a crime he never did. And what was the crime? He was accused. Well, the police officers claim that he confessed that he lent Robert Faraci his car to use in the murder. But here's the thing. As they went on trial, this evidence was presented against him. There was no other evidence at all against him. Nothing. There was no evidence that he committed the crime. There was no evidence of guns. No weapons were ever found. No DNA evidence. Nothing at all to convict him. And how did they convict him? You're going to laugh. Just hear this out. It was because of his autism. They actually acquitted Robert Faraci of the murder. They found him not guilty. But they found Paul Madrowski guilty 2 days after the acquittal of Robert Faraci. So, okay, I'm going to repeat this again because I'm going kind of fast. So Robert Faraci was found not guilty. 2 days after Robert Faraci got found not guilty, Paul Madrowski was found guilty of lending supposedly his car to Robert Faraci to use in murder. So Paul Madrowski got found guilty of doing nothing. Of doing absolutely nothing, just for having autism. How did that happen? The jury found him guilty because of his emotional expression in the courtroom, which was a manifestation of his autism. And the judge sentenced him to life in prison without parole. Basically, life in prison without parole for absolutely nothing. Not like, oh, you're the wrong guy, we convicted you of murder, yet you didn't commit it. No, I mean, you're accused of lending a car to a guy who actually was found not guilty. This technically means you're found guilty of absolutely nothing. Yeah. That's how corrupt the system is against people with disabilities. It is disgustingly corrupt. And I actually support a revolution of autistic people in this country. We need to have our own damn country. I'm serious. I'm really being serious. Of course, not a violent revolution. No, we need to have a political revolution where people with autism are a respected minority. Because we're being discriminated much more than other people's. Much more. Like, people with autism cannot speak up for themselves in some cases. And so they're treated worse than people who can. Like, African Americans, in most cases, they can speak up for themselves because they have a voice. They don't have a emotional disability, but they're discriminated against because of their color of their skin. But autism, it's different. The brain works differently, and people can't see that. So they're being discriminated against because of how their brain functions. And also because of their attitude. But long story short, autism discrimination is so prevalent in some countries that most of the prison populations, there's a lot of autistic people in a lot of prisons who never even committed a crime. But thank you for watching. I really think I probably will not get the job tomorrow. I'm going to post this online, and there's a chance my interviewer could see this video, and if I do get the job, I probably won't get fired for this because they probably will understand. Because there are people with autism who work at fast food restaurants and who do perfectly fine with autism, yeah. And maybe I'll be one of those people. Or maybe they will judge a book by its cover and not hire me. Thank you for watching. Bye.